Howdy, thank you. I'm Joe Romm, former Acting Assistant Secretary of Energy Efficiency for Renewable Energy and Efficiency way back in the Clinton administration. The first job that I got here was actually, I was Special Assistant to Deputy Secretary Bill White in 1993, and he oversaw all the energy programs. He had me help oversee the nuclear program. And since 1993, I have been tracking the hype about nuclear and that it was somehow about to have a renaissance, and it was, you had it, yeah. That it was about to have a renaissance, and what has happened, no, go back, yeah. It was supposedly, there's been a renaissance. If you Google nuclear renaissance, I think you will find that every few years there's been one. And thankfully, if the actual renaissance had been anything like the nuclear renaissance, we'd still be in the dark ages. But I guess in some respects we still are. So yeah, this whole thing is a great con job, and I would urge people to read this Capitol Hill citizen piece, big tech campaign to fast-track nuke energy. It is staggering. I didn't even fully understand. I mean, this is a massively long piece describing a purchasing of energy policy at a level that just boggles the mind, and with Bill Gates at the centerpiece, a man who does not know anything about energy, does not know anything about climate change, and is, I would have thought, rather discredited, but apparently not. One thing, there are two things you can say about nuclear power. If you build new nuclear plants, people's rates will go up. Okay, so if you're concerned about affordability, you definitely don't want to build nuclear power plants. The second thing we know is the United States has not built a nuclear power plant faster than 10 years duration of time in decades. So not going to help you with the AI crisis, and I expect the AI data center boom will bust before we actually complete a single nuclear plant. And I will say, I don't think we're going to complete a great many nuclear plants in this country. I think we are going to start a certain number, and it is going to be the same epic tragedy that occurred with Shoreham, that we're going to spend a lot of money, not going to finish it because the demand is going to collapse, and that's going to raise everyone's rates, and it's be the third time that's happened. Let's go to the next slide. So this is a new slide. I found this in the International Energy Agency. This is now my favorite new slide. So about that nuclear renaissance, this is actually just from May. This is a chart of annual change in global electricity generation by sources just the last 2 years. And you'll notice something about it. In 2024, lots of growth in solar and wind, some growth even in coal and natural gas, little growth in nuclear. 2025, not much growth in nuclear at all, continued explosion in solar and wind. Nuclear share of global power peaked in the 1990s at 17%. By 2022, it was down to 9.2%. In 2024, 9.1%. And just last year, it dropped to 8.9%. So there is no renaissance going on. It is a total fabrication. Right. This is the entire world. And by the way, the only country that's building any substantial amount of nuclear plants is China, which is great. They're not a market economy. It's a teeny fraction of their overall build in solar and wind. If you were to take China out, you would find a total collapse of nuclear power around the world. Let's go to the next slide. So what Trump has proposed, among a series of delusional executive orders that are comparable to his They're not much different between those and the things that he puts out on his Truth Social platform, in all honesty, because he seems to think we're going to have 300 net new gigawatts of reactors built by 2050. And it is safe to say that of all the things that he's ever said, this is the absolute least likely to ever happen. And that's obviously saying a great deal. You would require hundreds, if not thousands, of new reactors. There's only been 2 reactors built this century in this country. Successfully, I should say, right? Those are the 2 Vogtle plants. Those are AP1000s. Those are 1,100 megawatts each. They each took, 7+ years more than expected. So they were all like 12 to 15 years to build them. They were all massive overrun in cost. And the ultimate total price, probably around $38 billion. It's hard to actually quantify exactly because the numbers are not, it's relatively opaque. But one thing one can say is just those 2 reactors raised electricity rates in Georgia 25% and led to a massive, shocking rejection of 2 Republican public service commissioners. For the first time in decades, 2 Republicans were thrown out and 2 Democrats went in statewide elections in Georgia for a relatively obscure race. It just tells you how catastrophically bad people do not want their electricity prices going up. And the Georgia plant was the most expensive power plant ever built on Earth. It may be beaten in the next few years if the British ever finish one of their reactors. That will be maybe a $50 billion plant. But until then, and hopefully for a long time, this will be the most expensive plant ever built. South Carolina tried to build 2 of these AP1000s. They spent $9 billion, didn't finish them. Guess what? Electricity rates still went up because you're actually allowed to raise the electricity rates for ratepayers, even if you never finish building the plant. So this is a boondoggle in the making. Westinghouse went bankrupt, it should be noted, in 2017. Trump, however, has made a deal that if he can resuscitate Westinghouse, the federal government will get a very big chunk of their IPO. So we are in the unusual conflict of interest that the federal government's job is both to regulate the safety of the reactors that it itself will profit if it can get people to build them quickly enough to matter. I mean, it is unprecedented in the world. This is exactly why, as you heard, we eliminated the Atomic Energy Commission. Next one. Again, I don't have to repeat just how alarming the entire affordability issue has become. That affordability issue is strongly linked to electricity prices and natural gas heating. And if you were to actually pursue a nuclear renaissance, then what would happen is you would make data centers even less politically attractive than they are, and you would probably double the amount of opposition to them. Next slide. I know that people are very keen on these advanced reactors. The first thing to be said about them is that they don't exist. And so I apologize for talking about a hypothetical, fanciful science fiction experiment that no country in the world has ever successfully completed. That is to say, the commercialization of a small modular reactor. These reactors aren't actually small. You get to be called a small reactor if you're 300 megawatts. That is larger than most natural gas plants in this country. Okay? They're not modular. By the way, the Westinghouse AP1000s were sold as being modular, just for the record. Why do they call them small and modular? Because that is PR, that is advertising. Why? They're only the 2 qualities that allow you to say you're going to come down a cost curve are being small and modular, but that's solar cells and battery cells, right? That's small, that's modular, not a multi-100 megawatt reactor. So anyway, the Georgia plants hit a cost of $18 million per megawatt. That was the cost of the Vogel units. This was just the cost projections of various small modular reactors. The NuScale plant was shuttered just when the cost projection didn't start construction. Just the cost projection exceeded the Vogel plants. Bill Gates said on CBS News 2 years ago, this month actually, I believe, that the first Natrium reactor would cost $10 billion, which would make it almost $30 million per megawatt. For the record, Columbia University did an analysis which said that if you went above 6,000 per megawatt, 6 million per megawatt for a new reactor, you couldn't possibly compete. I just want to make a comment on this whole modularity nonsense. So there are 51 small modular reactor designs globally involved in licensing, 27 in the US. The US is pursuing 27 small modular reactors. The entire value proposition for small modular reactors is that they're going to be mass produced. That assumes there's one winner, maybe two. So it's going to be, 15, 20 years before these guys duke it out. And maybe sometime in the 2040s, they'll have found one that is maybe more affordable. Probably not, though. Next, I'll put this as the last slide. So this is a chart that Wood Mackenzie did that was in the Financial Times in October. So the most expensive form of power in the year 2030, this is a projection. This is for projects completed in 2030. Most expensive, small reactors. Next most expensive, conventional nuclear, but guess what gas is now expensive? Thanks to the data center boom, the price of new combined cycle turbines have tripled, and the price of natural gas went up 50% between 2024 and 2025. The future is wind and solar and batteries. That has been 93% of new capacity generation in this country in 2024, 2025, and despite Trump's best efforts, 2026. So any effort to build any substantial number of nuclear power plants is certainly going to fail, but I suspect and I fear we're going to start building a whole bunch of them, and the ratepayers will be stuck with them, and maybe some of them will turn on briefly. The Shoreham reactor turned on at low power for a couple hours, and then was shuttered because it didn't even make sense to run the Shoreham reactor after it was complete. That's how uneconomic nuclear reactors are. Thank you.